Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the MIYCN Family Planning Immunization Integration Community of Practice biannual global meeting. We're very excited that you are joining us today. While we have other colleagues join us, which usually takes a few minutes to get folks in, we can start to go over maybe some housekeeping and just review how you all can select a language that you prefer. We have both French and Spanish interpretation today. So if you need interpretation, you can, at the bottom of your screens, select the interpretation button on Zoom and select which language you prefer. So I'll give folks a few minutes to select which language they prefer, and then maybe we can get started after that. Okay, let's get started. So again, welcome to the MIYCN Family Planning and Immunization Community of Practice meeting. We're very excited to have you here. My name is Lindsay Miller. I sit on the family planning team of the Momentum Country and Global Leadership Project at CHWs. I will be your moderator for the meeting, but will be joined by several colleagues who sit on the steering committee of our community of practice. And we also have some very special guests today that we are excited to listen to throughout the meeting. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping reminders. We really recommend using a headset during the meeting. This is going to be what we hope an interactive meeting. We want to discuss together. We want to hear from you, and making sure that everyone's audio is working is really helpful in doing that. So we recommend using headsets. Please use the chat box to interact with each other, to ask questions. Given our agenda today, we won't have time to have an open Q&A session, but speakers may be able to answer your questions if you put them in the chat box. So please feel free to use the chat box throughout the meeting today. If you have any technology issues, please direct message Shantae or Matea, and they can help you get sorted. This meeting is being recorded, which we will share after the meeting. There are many colleagues maybe who can't join us today, and we want to be able to share the meeting with them. There is live French and Spanish interpretation. So please select your preferred language at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And for everyone else for anyone who comes off mute and who speaks today, please just remember to speak slowly so that the interpreters are able to translate everything that we hope to share today. And lastly, introduce yourself in the chat box. We can't wait to see who is with us today. So please add your name, your organization, and country. So today we really wanted to bring this community together with the purpose of exploring the intersections of family planning, immunization, and nutrition at the community level, and discover ways to support community health workers to provide integrated care. Our community of practice really looks at the integration of these three critical technical areas and service areas, and community health workers are so critical in providing that integrated care. And it's often where we see integrated care provided the most consistently. There have been several high-level meetings on strengthening systems to support community level care and specifically to support community health workers. And so we thought now is a good time for this community of practice across these three technical areas to reflect what we can be doing, what we're already doing, and how can we strengthen that to support community health workers to provide integrated care and services. So today's agenda, we want to listen. We are going to have opening remarks from our colleague, George Mwina, who's a former community health worker in Ghana. We want to hear from you, so we hope that you will share with us what your priorities for integration are and how community health workers are involved in offering integrated care across the three technical areas. The bulk of the meeting is going to be discussion groups, is to come together and really discuss in detail how this community of practice can engage and support community health workers, and what are some promising approaches that all of us are seeing and working on and we want to promote. And finally, we're going to hear from our colleague Millicent Mruka, who is a community health worker supervisor from Kenya. And she's going to offer us some final reflections. So now I will hand it over to my colleague, Rebecca Fields, who's going to tell us a bit about our community of practice if this is your first time joining us. Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and a warm welcome to everybody who is joining us today. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So glad you can make it. Because we have had some time pass since our previous meeting, and we're always welcoming new people to the group, to this community of practice, we just wanted to take a minute or two to give a very short background on the community of practice itself. Next slide, please. So who are we? Well, the vision of this group, and who are we and what do we do actually? The vision of this group is to increase the quality and the convenience of comprehensive care for women during pregnancy, and especially the first year postpartum, and for infants and children, through effective connections across high impact, high priority services, with a particular focus on nutrition, family planning, and immunization. And the background for this community of practice is that it was created in 2019, and it combined two previously separate groups that had also been working on integration, but which we felt would work better if we all came together into a single group, into a single community of practice. So previously, for about 10 years, there had been a working group on integration of family planning and immunization. And there had also been a working group on integration of family planning and nutrition. And so we came together in 2019 to bring the different groups together and work as one. This community of practice is managed by a steering committee, and a secretariat that is housed at the USAID's Momentum Country and Global Leadership Project. And it also comprises subject matter experts from family planning, from maternal, infant, and young child nutrition, and from immunization. We hold 2 global virtual meetings per year and also have online engagement by way of the IBP exchange. And at present, we have about, I think it's about a little under 600 members in this community of practice. Next slide, please. So the objectives of this MIYCN Family Planning Immunization Integration Community of Practice are as shown here. We're all working, all of these objectives work to support integrated, high quality, convenient MIYCN family planning and nutrition, and immunization services. And we do this through several means. One is through sharing program experiences, lessons learned, and key resources from different efforts in an attempt to link services. We work to identify effective models for linking the provision of these 3 interventions. We promote engagement and active learning exchanges at regional and national levels within countries. We enable, empower, and motivate champions for holistic MIYCN family planning and immunization services. And we support proactive efforts to try to link different organizations that are working on integration. And I think you'll see much of this embodied in our discussions today. So that's just a very, very quick high-level overview of the community of practice. Now I'd like to introduce our first speaker, George Munya. And George really brings a very unique perspective. He has an extensive background in public health. He began his career, as Lindsay mentioned, as a community health worker in Ghana, providing essential preventive services, including immunization, to hard-to-reach villages. Since then, he has earned a master's degree and a PhD in epidemiology from Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. And over more than 10 years, he's collaborated with a diverse group of stakeholders, including Countdown to 2030 and ministries of health in various countries, demonstrating leadership in providing technical support on immunization and primary health care to these stakeholders. Currently, George works for UNICEF's data team, where he leads the planning, monitoring, and reporting functions for the immunization team at UNICEF's headquarters in New York. So we're very pleased to have George speaking with us today and joining this community of practice. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to George. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the great introduction and for the opportunity to participate in this meeting and to actively share experiences and thoughts. So what I would like to do quickly, it's always good to get ourselves reminded who community health workers are, but more importantly, why integrating services like family planning, nutrition, and immunization is extremely essential at this point. So what you see here is an outreach immunization service where we meet with mothers, with young children, and you provide various services, both those in relation to children, but also those in relating to women. Next slide. Now, in addition to that, we also, again, provide service in some of the most difficult to reach places, and sometimes involve a lot of innovations. What you are seeing here is a community health worker on the way to a village. Due to the road conditions, they cannot get to the final destination. And so what you do is you organize, and the women and children from the village will meet you halfway. And in the middle of nowhere, with a lot of innovations, you see that we provide care. Now, what I want you to be thinking about as you see this is why integration is important. And I will summarize this at the end. Next slide. So in this process, as mentioned, you saw first, that was immunization of a child. Here you are seeing a woman receiving a family planning injectable, again in the same location. Next slide. In addition to that, as I was highlighting, in some few instances, you can go further, but it takes quite a bit to get to some of these destinations. And again, I'm providing this as a background. Most of us on here are quite familiar with some of this, but it's always good to be reminded of what it takes to reach the last child, the last family, and the last community. What does it take when we talk of equity? The logistics and salaries, nice, but it's not sufficient. It takes more than that. Next slide. And here again, I share some of the risks and the dangers that people, community health workers, and myself have served in some of these communities have to go through in order to reach families. So next slide, and this is where I would like to spend some time quickly. The question is, what are the leading issues facing community health workers, particularly as it relates to integration? And I will share some thoughts and share some ground experiences that I think will be beneficial for this community of practice. First of all, the concept of integration makes sense. As you've seen just from the pictures I shared, it's very clear that if a person will go through climbing these mountains, crossing those streams, and finally get into a community, and all they do once they are there is to provide immunization, then that is not an efficient use of the energy and effort. And more often, the people we serve, even though programmatically sometimes people are thinking in silos. People think nutrition is a different division, different group, different people. People are thinking immunization, that's a complete different department, different group, and different planning, different budget lines. Same with family planning. Yet at the community level, when you are with a family or a community to provide service, we need to recognize that all this converge into just one family, one individual. It's the same person who is receiving the family planning. They have a young child who is getting malnourished. They're receiving education on the nutrition component. And then they have a child who needs to be immunized. So we need to recognize that at the delivery point or the recipient and beneficiaries of this service, you are not dealing with different departments, different divisions. You are dealing with one person. The integration of services should involve active engagement and involvement of community health workers and communities. Now, there are a couple things I would like to go over, which is been part of the discussion, so we don't need to look at it. One of them is like the need for well-paid community health workers, accreditation, and providing logistics. Those are things we've heard over and over and over, and we know. But here I will get into some of the nuances that are not as well discussed. One, more often as a community health worker, all the tasks get added from different programs, not just the 3 programs we talk about here, HIV, TB, malaria, talk about it. And yet the same amount you get is what you're still getting paid. So then how do you effectively add more tasks, which means you have less time to do your own other activities that will generate income or food for your family, and you are expected to spend more time to deliver all this, and yet you are getting paid the same amount. That's the first thing. And so more often integrations in my time when I was in the field will not work, mainly because if I started out in an immunization program and I'm getting paid, let's say $100 per month, then the following month a group comes and add on family planning and I'm still getting $100. In my mind, I know that $100 come from the immunization program, not the family planning program. So the family planning program will not take priority in my list. So those are some of the challenges. And then let's also now face some of the most serious intricacies in the field. More often, and this has happened to me, I did a program that was very intensive. I led the whole thing and organized and did a lot of work. It was to address maternal mortality and death during childbirth. I finished everything. I was given a sheet to sign that I'm receiving $100 per diem for organizing the program. I finished signing the sheet and then I was handed over $20. Who do I talk to as a community health worker when I'm faced with these things? These are the things to think about. Now, there are several problems here. One, as a community health worker at that point, if I try to make any noise, one, who do I talk to? Two, when you try to make any noise or bring this issue up anywhere, there are multiple things that will happen. You get tagged as the black goat. The implications are that next time when there's another program, you are not getting invited. Next time you are the one everybody is pointing fingers at as the troubled person. You are tagged not because you've done anything wrong, just because you are asking a simple question of why you are signing a sheet that says you are receiving $100 and they are giving you $20. These are some of the things community health workers suffer in silence. And then you tell me, oh, we go for supervision, we have systems for feedback. What feedback? The community health worker is here. The supervisor who is cutting them 80% of their salary is sitting next to them, and you are asking them, what are your challenges? They cannot talk. You talk and then you lose that job. You talk and you are not invited for the next program. So talk of integration, you need to think about these things. You need to create a system where there is honest feedback, one that does not attract punishment for being honest, one that allows people to share the true challenges that can change and transform programs. And the same is true. When we talk of integration, we always want to talk of all the benefits. The piece we don't usually like talking about is the need to commensurate that with additional incentives. When we talk of integration, we need to talk about integrated supervision, integrated management of supplies and logistics. And these are the things that you will not hear. You can do 1 million supervision, you are not going to hear this because both the people who are part of the problem and the people who are experiencing the problem are still together in the same environment. I am able to speak to you honestly and freely today, mainly because at least I don't have a supervisor next to me who will make sure I lose my job today after this talk. And these are some of the micro issues that sometimes we need to really pay special attention to. Integration makes sense. Integration, in fact, is something that communities demand and ask for. But integration should come with the resources needed and the need to create a system that allows community health workers to share their experiences and challenges honestly without getting punished. I'm extremely, again, grateful for this community of practice and for the opportunity to bring in voices from the grassroots to share some of these things. And I hope that this will be a dialogue that will continue and you continue to create conditions and systems that makes it easy for communities to access service and for community health workers to work without too much challenges and without too much obstacles. Next slide. So again, together with this community of practice, I believe strongly that with community health workers and with the actions that this community of practice will take and act on, no child or family or communities will be left behind. And our fight for universal health and health equity will be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. Fantastic remarks. And it was very nice to hear your honest remarks and listening to your experiences. And I just want to say that, George was talking about how committed and critical community health workers are to providing care to the families that they serve. And in the spirit of that, he is still showing his commitment. It is the middle of his evening. He is currently based on the West Coast of the US. So it is quite literally the middle of his evening, and he agreed to join us to open our meeting today with his remarks. So still speaking to his commitment as a community health worker. So thank you, George. And George, there are a lot of reactions and a few questions for you in the chat. So if you can maybe make your way through the chat and respond to some of those. But I think your remarks really set the stage for our discussion group so we can have honest, transparent conversations on what this community of practice can do to support community health workers. So thank you very much again. Next, we're going to do a bit of an interactive activity, what I like to call a brain noodle warm-up. We want to take an opportunity to hear from you all and to take a bit of an inventory on what's important to you as a community of practice who have joined us today, and what you're currently working on and what sort of you're already seeing. So we're going to use Mentimeter. Next slide, please. So there are two ways to connect to the Mentimeter poll where you can insert your answers. The first is you can use your phone to scan the QR code, or you can go to menti.com and insert the code that's on the screen. Matea has just kindly put the direct link to the Menti poll in the chat. So you can click on that link to join us and then enter the code that you see on the screen. And Matea, do you also mind sharing the code in the chat as well? Kristen is going to pull up our first question that we hope that you can respond to. Obviously, there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. We want to hear from you. What are your priorities in regards to integration for MIYCN-FP immunization service delivery?
So Lindsay,
Yes.
for some reason I have a different question on mine. Did I accidentally skip the one that says, what are some examples?
So that might be, no, the first question should be this question. Matea, is there a different code for the second question?
I was scanning the QR code and that's what I got to.
Oh.
It says that presenter has changed slides. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah, if the presenters change slides, hopefully it should update if you have the second question.
Sorry.
No problem. I see some other folks have that as well. So just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same question.
Thanks, Matea. So hopefully everyone can see our first question, which is, what are your priorities in regards to integration for MIYCN-FP immunization service delivery? One of the things that we hope to do and we plan to do after this meeting is actually summarize the reflections, the discussions, and this activity in a 1 or 2 page briefer. So this isn't an exercise just to warm up our brain noodles, but we will summarize the responses to our 2 questions that we're going to ask today and share them back with you all. So Charles, I see you in the chat. Let me repaste the Mentimeter link. Oh, thank you so much, Matea. So you can also, if the QR code didn't work, you can also just access it on your phone or computer by clicking the menti.com link that Matea just posted in the chat. Lots of responses. And we won't have time to review these now, which is why we've committed to summarizing these and sharing them back with you all after the meeting. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to the second question, which some of you I think have already seen. But our second question is, what are some examples of how community health workers are involved in supporting integrated nutrition, family planning, and immunization care or services? When we were planning this meeting, we did not think of a specific program or a specific project to sort of present their work, a single project or a single program, because there are so many examples of ways that integrated care provided by community health workers is already happening. And we want to hear about as many of them as you can share today. And we want to collect those and again, share those back to this community. So we're interested to hear from you. It could be in a program that you're currently working on. It could be in a program that you've seen previously or in your countries. We're interested in the various models of care, of integrated care that community health workers provide. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a perfect model across all three technical areas. But as George put so eloquently, community health workers do it all. So it often is. And if you're sharing an example, if there's the name of a project that that model is associated with, or the country that you've seen it in, we would love to really understand where some of these fantastic models are coming from. So maybe just 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll move to our discussion groups. One more minute for any other examples that you can share that you've seen or worked on, or you think are good models to share with this community. These are fantastic. I'm seeing lots of really specific examples from various countries. So this is really great. And I think what maybe An wrote in the chat, but also feel free to respond in your preferred language. Don't feel like you need to write a response in English. We will translate them. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think the Menti will stay open. So if you think of others, Kristen and Matea, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you think of other responses or you want to add to what we already have, please feel free to continue to do so. But I want to leave time for our discussion groups, which is really sort of the meat of today's meeting. So thank you so much, Kristen. And thank you all for your inputs. Again, we will summarize those and share them back with everyone who attended today. So next, we are going to, next slide, please. We are going to break out into discussion groups. And we have a few big questions that we want to ask you. We really want to hear from you, and we really want to have, a detailed conversation about what our community can do to support community health workers and what that might look like. We have breakout groups by preferred language. So right now at the bottom of your screen, you will either see a breakout room button, or if you click on more, the breakout room, you should see a breakout room option. And if you click that, then you'll see a breakout room that you can join by your preferred language. So go ahead and select a breakout room that you prefer based on your preferred language now. And colleagues of mine will join you in those breakout rooms, and we will share what we hope to discuss in those. If you have any issues joining a breakout room, you can stay here with us, and Shante will help move you to a breakout room. So just type in the chat what your preferred language is, and she can move you to
If you write your preferred language, we will transfer you to the breakout room based on that language. You can write it in the chat.
Florence, what room would you like to go to? You can unmute and let me know what room you'd like to go to as well. Those that are still in the main room, if you can let me know what room you'd like to go to, you can unmute and let me know, or you can write in the chat. You click on breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to choose a room to join as well. For those that are still in the main room, if you let me know what room you would like to go to, what language room you'd like to go to, please either unmute yourself or you can write it in the chat.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
I'm sorry, I had a network challenge, and I'm back. I'm seeing there are breakout rooms. How do I know which room to join, please?
Which language would you like to be in?
English.
Okay, I'll put you in one. Thank you. If anyone else would like to unmute, I can add you to a room.
Better here, please also add me to the English.
English. Who was speaking? Sorry. Can you unmute again? Who was just speaking?
Beth here.
Okay, okay,
Beth.
I'll move you. Thank you. You're still in the main room. I can put you into a breakout room. There's still 30 minutes so of the breakout room going on. You let me know. You can unmute or chat what language you want. You're in the main session. We're in our breakout rooms. You can either choose, go to the breakout room option at the bottom of your screen and join a room based on the language, or you let me know and you can unmute yourself, or you can write it in the chat and I'll move you. For those of you still in the waiting or in the main room, they are still in breakout sessions. If you let me know which language you prefer, I can move you. You can either unmute or write it in the chat. For those of you still in this room, if you'd like to join one of the breakout rooms, just let me know which breakout room you would like to join by language. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute. Hello, which one would you like to go to? Which one? Sorry. Which session would you like to go in? I'm guessing. Hello? If you'd like to join one of the breakout rooms, please let me know which language you would like to go into. You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat window. For those of you still in this room, if you'd like to join the breakout rooms, there's still 23 minutes left. If you'd like to tell me the language you prefer, I can move you to one of the rooms. You can unmute or you can put it in the chat window. For anyone still in this room, if you'd like to go to a chat or to a breakout room, please put in the chat the language that you would like to join, or you can unmute and let me know. For anyone in this room, if you'd like to join one of the breakout sessions, please let me know what language you prefer. You can unmute or put it in the chat. If you're in this room, please let me know which breakout session that you would like to join. You can type it in the chat or unmute and I can move you.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm sure folks were pulled in the middle of a conversation. I know we were just wrapping up our discussion that was really fruitful and thought-provoking and engaging. So sorry to cut off conversations. If we did, we always really struggle with wanting to give enough time to speak and engage and talk to each other, but not have a very, very long meeting this early in the morning. So like I said, we're not going to summarize conversations right now, but we will do so and share a summary document after the meeting so that all of these reflections and learnings are captured. We wanted to end today's meeting again by hearing from a community health worker, and I have the great pleasure of introducing Millicent, who will close out the meeting with her final reflections from her experiences and from her attending today and listening to what we had to say as a community of practice. Millicent Maruka is a dedicated community health worker supervisor in Migori County, Kenya. Since 2012, she has been helping her community to access quality health care. Millicent's motivation to become a community health worker resulted from her personal experience while she was giving birth, which inspired her strong will to care for and educate her community members about their health and well-being. So Millicent, please close us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Okay, thank you so much. Just as it has been said, I'm Millicent Miruka. I'm a community health worker from Migori County in Kenya. I'm working under Ministry of Health, being supported by Luala Community Alliance. Being a community health worker is a very clear indication that I'm having a lot of experience. So that when I was starting my journey to be as a motherhood, I had a lot of difficulties in that time. I experienced postpartum bleeding during my delivery, from my first delivery, and it was almost leading me to death. But I thank God that I survived and my child also survived. At that time, I was very still young, that I didn't know much about taking care of my child. And at the age of 2 months, I started introducing my child to solid foods. But this didn't go well for my baby. She was not healthy and she was not even thriving well. At the age of 8 months, I discovered that I was pregnant. It was hard to accept the situation. Why? Because my baby was still young and she was not doing well health-wise. I just had to carry my pregnancy, and at long last, I delivered well at home with the help of a traditional birth attendants. On the other hand, my baby was still not well healthy. She was still sick, and she was seriously sick at that time. And unfortunately, at the age of 1.5 years, my baby passed on. This was very painful to me, and it was a hard situation to me to understand what was going on. I had to accept and move on with the life. But God still left me with another child that I had to care for the child, and I didn't want to lose my child again. So one day, one morning, one of my neighbors came to me. She was a great friend to me, and she had some information concerning health issues. She talked to me and gave me an advice to visit the facility. She held my hand and took me to the facility where women were getting family planning methods and children were being immunized. And at long run, I decided to get the services. I took the family planning, and my child was also immunized. And I can tell you that my child was progressing well. She was very healthy due to the services that I got at the facility. And as at now, when I'm talking, my surviving child is 17 years old, and she had 2 more brothers. I thank God for that. As a community, all these experiences really motivated me to become a community health worker. And as a community health worker, we offer integrated services in the community level. All these integrated services for the mothers who are pregnant, we offer health talk to them. We educate them on the importance of visiting the facility for antenatal care. We also educate them on the importance of delivering at the facility. And at times, we also track the individual birth plan. And most importantly, as a community health worker, I introduce the subject of family planning to these mothers at that level. Why? Because we want their children to survive and even to thrive. When these mothers deliver, we walk the journey with them. We track them, the immunization system. And on immunization, we have the digital tools. These digital tools help us to track the immunization systems. When we go for the household visits, we check on the booklets for these children if they've been immunized. And we also remind the caregivers on the upcoming immunization, because we want all children to be fully immunized in the community. And on that topic again, let me continue by saying that once the mothers deliver, we work with them, and we want their children to be fully immunized. That is our main target as community health workers. And when it comes to nutrition, part of it, we have the test kits at the community level. We use the MIYCN, which is the mid-upper arm circumference tools that help us detect the nutrition in children. We also use the weighing scale, and we even check their heights at the community level. And if at all we find there's a malnutrition case at the community level, we refer them immediately to the facility to get further management. Now, to the stakeholders in the health sector and to the people joining the meeting today, we want to say that family planning, nutrition, immunization are all interrelated, and they should be integrated at the community level. Why am I saying so? Because when mothers face their pregnancies well, they will find it easier to breastfeed their children and even to take care of them at the right time. Another thing, we also want to be digitized as community health workers, because if we are digitized, it will make our work easier at the community level. We will be able to track the family planning. We will be able to track the immunization. We will also be able to track the nutrition part of it. And it will be easier for us as community health workers at the household level. Above all, as community health workers, we want to be professionalized. In that, we want to be well trained. We want to be well recognized at the community level, because we are also doing a lot in the community. We want to be well paid. We want to be well supervised. And finally, we want an opportunity for advancement, just to motivate us as community health workers, because we are the first point of contact at the community. Just as the saying goes, nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Millicent. We are at time, and I think that was such a beautiful way to end the meeting. So I don't want to add too much except to say thank you again to George and Millicent for joining us today and for offering their personal stories and personal reflections, and especially Millicent for sharing such a personal story. And I think George and Millicent really spoke to what's important to community health workers themselves. And hopefully all of us that attended today's meeting, that we are walking away with a renewed or a fresh perspective on ways that we can support community health workers, the critical work that they do, and how specifically we can support them to provide integrated care and services across nutrition, family planning, and immunization. So I will leave it there. Thank you so much for joining again. We will be in touch with a recording of the meeting and a summary of our discussions of the Mentimeter activity and both George and Millicent's reflections. So thank you again and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.